And we are live. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the 90. We've got a very weird but special kind of wrap-up show for you today. Kind of going over the last weeks. Obviously, the Euros has kicked off, all that good stuff. We're going to be touching on Timothy Castagne, your injury, a little bit on Kasper Schmeichel, a little bit about Leicester City players in general at the Euros, then a couple of rumours that you've seen in the thumbnail as well. But over to you, Alex. I know you've been watching the Euros as well. How have you found it from over the pond watching the Euros?
I always love the Euros. It's always fun to watch. Everyone is always confused as to which country I'm going to be cheering for. And then when I admit that I'm cheering for England, they're all like, aren't you Canadian? And then I have to further explain the fact that generations ago, I was originally, my whole family was from England and they moved here. And then I'm like, well, I'm still going to cheer for England. And then I also have to reiterate the fact that I'm like, well, Canada still has a shot to get into the World Cup next year, and if that happens, sorry. So I've been enjoying it.
It makes sense. And over to you. First of all, mate, we've got internet. This is a miracle within itself. But how have you been doing the Euros and stuff?
Been brilliant, hasn't it? Did you see the Scotland game today, by the way? Just whilst we're on it, 23 years to concede a goal in your own half. Oh,
yeah, but that goal was it's beautiful though. I watched it in real time and I saw the ball loop and I was like, oh, that's quite impressive. Then to see the way that it curved round, I went, whoa, that's like a cricket ball.
It was incredible, but I don't know what the keeper was doing, why he was so far away. I know you got to be on the edge of your box, but it was ridiculously far away. So yeah. I don't know. As good as a goal it was, I just think that he was asking for trouble standing that far away from his box.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's not exactly Edison or something. Anyway, if you've got any transfers or anything you want to talk about, leave them in the comments down below. We'll try and get back to you and trying to bring you as part of the show. But first of all, Alex, who do you want to start with? Because again, the floor's open. We've had so many transfer targets and stuff of recent. It's been going a bit crazy in the Leicester sphere.
Let's bring up Gosens. I think that was one that we were discussing prior to recording, and I think that one's pretty interesting to talk about.
Yeah. So, and I know you've had a look at bit statistics and a bit along Atalanta and some of his scores. Take it away, mate.
Yeah, so this is the one that excites me more out of the two players that we're going to look at today, which is probably weird when we're going to talk about a huge name like Coutinho and stuff. But I think Gosens actually improves us more. A naturally left-footed left-back, probably one of the most sort of exciting elite left-backs in Europe over the last couple of seasons in terms of going forward. Last year, as a wing-back, so in a five-back system similar to what we played, did a little bit of research. So in 32 appearances, he got 11 goals and 6 assists. And I know people say, yeah, he's playing in Serie A and all of that stuff. Those numbers can't be ignored. And someone else that's quite interesting, because as well as Castagne's done for us this season, when they were both at Atalanta, Castagne was the backup for Gosens. So I think he's a player that if he was going to come into Leicester at 26, he's right at that age where he's starting to hit his prime, but he's also got those years of experience. He's played at the top level. I think he's a player that would massively, massively improve us. And I don't think it will be sort of too difficult for him to fit in, because obviously he's got Castagne, who he played with before. And also there's huge similarities in between the Atalanta system and the Leicester system. I know the league's a lot different, but there's still sort of enough similarities where it shouldn't be too difficult for him to fit in as the sort of caliber of player that he is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And as well, those goals and assists, I don't know if you mentioned them, but they're insane at the moment. But over to you, Alex. What do you... Sorry, continue. I'm having to make the breakdown. Hold on. Something went wrong. Alex, what are your thoughts on him? Because we've talked about him before. Okay, I'm going to go. Alex, take it away.
No, for sure. The one thing that really interests me about Gosens is that I feel like when you look at what Leicester has currently, he would definitely add to the squad, but it would also help Rodgers really utilize different formations. And I think that's pivotal, and especially if you're looking at competing in different tournaments. And whether that be Europa, if that's challenging again in the FA Cup, that's and in the Premier League, it allows Rodgers to really utilize a whole bunch of new formations when you add a player to what the caliber that Gosens is at. I would definitely would be on board with it. I think if the signing does happen, it would be fantastic. And one of the things is that you can look at is, you're looking at with James Justin being injured, so you have Thomas, unconfirmed reports, but it sounds like Bertrand will be signing with Leicester. So you have those two. And then on the other side, you have Ricardo, who is not still fully fit. So if you bring in a player like Gosens, I think it would definitely help that back end out. But then, as Ant said, he knows Castagne. That's huge, and then with the two of them playing with each other while they're over in Italy, it's massive. So I think it would be a great addition. And if we can get him at the price that has been rumored to be going about, it would be highway robbery. That's as easy as I can say it. It would be absolutely robbery to get a player of his caliber for that price.
And from the looks of it, Leicester are good at doing robberies. I mean, looks like Samore, again, you can watch the video on our channel. We've managed to do one on them. On him specifically, we've had a video with Doug as well. That looks like daylight robbery. I think we put in a bid for 25 million. That was, I think it was reliant on us getting Champions League. Now we're coming back with a 17 million euro. But it is, again, that will be a position that we have, I think. And they were mentioning in the summer, I think, from the Rob Tanner from the Athletic was mentioning that's a place that we are looking to strengthen as well, especially in that left back position. I know that it looks like Bertrand is pretty much is on a 1-year deal as well. However, that's a position we could definitely fill as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing is we've got players like Luke Thomas and James Justin who are there brilliantly, but Castagne, playing him when we've seen him on the left-hand side, he looks nowhere near as comfortable as he does on the right. So I think Rodgers is trying to address that. And then with Luke Thomas, I think a lot of Leicester fans really like what we're seeing with him, but there's still a huge amount of development there. So to bring in a player like Gosens, who's so highly rated and sort of more experienced, I think it's not only good for the squad itself, but it'll be good for younger players like Luke Thomas in those positions who'll be able to learn so much from him. Because there has been times this year, and it's going to happen, where Luke Thomas, he does sort of look slightly out of his depth, and that's to be expected for sort of a kid at his age. But having said that, towards the end of the season, he came on massively. But I do think a player like Gosens not only improves the squad in terms of the depth, but also the experience and sort of what the younger players could learn off him.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there, especially with, as you were saying, the Champions League experience. And of recent, I think Atalanta have done quite well as well in terms of the squad they're going. I know, Andy, you were saying that the AC Milan looked like they were interested in signing him as well, just off camera.
Yeah, that's what the rumours say, but it's like you could find a rumour saying that he's linked to absolutely anyone. So I think it's got to take it with a pinch of salt. But something that's worth taking note of is the fact he's out of contract next summer, so they won't be able to play as hardball as they were last year when we tried to sign him. So I think the fact that there are multiple teams interested plays in their favour a bit, but they're not going to be able to push the price up too much.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Anyway, we'll move on to the next transfer. So we've covered pretty much all that is. One that's come out of absolutely nowhere. We've seen him linked with him last year. Phillipe Coutinho, Alex. I mean, I kind of understand this one, but at the same time, I don't. I mean, there's loads of stuff going around him at the moment. A lot of rumors to Leicester. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel like this rumor has been going around ever since Rodgers really came to the club, because he was the manager at Liverpool when Coutinho was there. So, there is that history. At the same time, you look at what is, his weekly wages, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. And, if I sold both kidneys, I wouldn't be able to afford it, not even 1 week alone. So then you go to that, then you go to the point of being like, okay, if this was to happen, how would it happen? And the only way you do it is a loan deal. That's the only way that you bring a player of his caliber to Leicester. Now, the second thing is, do you need a player, do we want him at the club? And there's been you've had a lot of mixed reviews about him. He's an incredible player, but you look at like where he would slot into this formation, and into this squad. So it is very interesting. I'm not saying I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not fully convinced that he would fit with this squad. And that's where that's where I am right now. I think there's going to be aspects that if by some miracle it does happen, I think he would, improve the squad here and there. But at the same time, I think with the addition of his addition, I think it would cause issues, fitting in players that we have been, used to watching for the past year or 2 years. So, it brings up the question is, if it does happen, how is he going to fit into the squad? And the only way it's going to happen is going to be on a loan deal because, as I said, his wages are insane.
Yeah, his wages really are insane, and especially coming from Barcelona. I know he's not had the best track record at the moment. However, if he does come and A, injuries surely are a big thing, B, wages are another, and C, which position does he take as well? I mean, David just puts in the comments, to me, would be a replacement for Maddison. They all can't play at the same time. And what position would you think he would play?
Well, the thing is, I've seen people saying he'll come off the bench and stuff at the end for like Barnes and stuff. I'd say if Coutinho comes, he'll be expecting to start every game. And there's no way that he comes unless he doesn't. So, like, his natural positions is that he can play as a number 10 or off the left. So that either means Barnes goes onto the right, which I'm not a fan of, or Maddison then drops onto the bench. So that in itself is you almost feel like you're forcing him into the team at the expense of some of the other players, which I'm not opposed to signing him, but I'm opposed to signing him for the sake of signing him. I feel like he's a luxury player, but we shouldn't be prioritizing. We should be looking to fix the holes within our team in terms of a centre back, a left back, a right winger before we start looking at players like Coutinho.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. Again, I agree with a lot you're saying. I'm thinking as well, just to kind of play devil's advocate to what you're saying. Phillipe Coutinho has experience. He's been at some of the top clubs, and if we're going to try and push on to the next level, he's going to be a player we can kind of look to and go, right, take us on. My only issue is the ego thing. Obviously, he left Liverpool to go to Barcelona because it was like the next step up. And the one thing as well, Alex, the wage. I mean, Barcelona for a loan, they pay Bayern Munich paid £10 million. That's a lot of money. I mean, bearing in mind we signed under for $2 million, and then plus the wages on top. That's got to be a massive factor. But do you think he's the kind of player we need, especially with the experience that he's got as well? Because Vardy's got the experience, sure, but in the midfield, we don't really have anybody that's got that experience.
The hard thing that I have with this rumor is that it's the most un-Leicester thing that they would ever do. And that's the way I'm looking at this rumor and this whole Coutinho situation is that, Leicester are so good when it comes to, scouting their players. And like we said, they are really good at getting players on a bargain. You look at Wesley Fofana, some people would say that the price that we paid for him was, we got hosed, but, now we're laughing. You look at players like Tielemans where we absolutely robbed, and then you look at, Maddison's even a robbery now. And the goat of all goats is Jamie Vardy. Getting him for £1 million is absolute highway robbery. So when I look at this type of rumor, it doesn't make sense to me. Especially when you have to factor in, the cost of what it will, the cost of the loan itself. And to me, it doesn't seem like the asset management that Leicester is so known for. It just seems like a out to right field type of play where, they'll be like, well, we got this superstar player. And you're like, okay, but look what we could have got. We've been talking about, Eduoard, we've been talking about Gosens, we've been talking about Sumare, we've been talking about Bertrand, there's been discussions about Tokarski, and you got all these players that are like in the last year of their deals and whatnot that we're getting on really good prices or possibly getting them on good prices. So when you think of Coutinho and you're thinking of the wage bill and the price of what it would cost for the loan itself, it doesn't make sense to me, like whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree with Alex. And you were going to say something
as well. For me, that I haven't seen a lot of people saying about this, but for me, it's like, what's the motivation for Coutinho from coming all the way to like the top clubs in the world? He's been at Bayern Munich, Barcelona, and Liverpool, to then take a step down to Leicester. What's his motivation to do that? Because if it's to start playing football again and stuff like that, brilliant. But if it's to come to Leicester, get a signing on fee, and he's not really that bothered about it, and it's like, Brendan Rodgers knows Coutinho better than anyone. So if he thinks that he's going to come in and he's really going to be wanting to be part of this project, then I'll fully be behind it. But I almost feel like if it's like one last payday kind of thing, but if we do get him on a permanent, so I'm very, as good of a player as he is or was, because we still don't know if he's going to reach those levels again, even if we fork out all this money on weekly wages and stuff. We don't know if he's going to be the same player he was before, because he's had a lot of injuries, a lot of time not being selected. So it's a huge risk. And it seems like a huge risk for not a huge amount of reward. And that's something I think that we've been so good at, is calculated risks. And it just seems like way too big a risk for what it's worth.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if we're going to get experience in, there's better experience in that position that's going to be less injury prone, better at leading the line and these kind of things. Because I think if you think about it, Jamie Vardy's going to be the top experienced player. Then apart from that, Johnny Evans and then Kasper Schmeichel. There's a lot of gap in between. So I think we could do with an experienced player there. But I agree, I don't think that Coutinho is the right man for us. However, I think the reason why he's getting linked is just because he just wants out, maybe. But I don't, again, as you were saying, I can't see why he would come to us. I really, really can't. Anyway, we'll move on to some of the players that have been playing in the Euros now. Or have you got any other rumours? Because they were the main two that I've seen over the last couple of days.
I've seen Daka as well for Salzburg or Leipzig. I don't know. One of the Red Bull clubs, but I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about him. I've seen that he's been linked to Liverpool a lot, and their fans seem to want them to sign him, but I don't know a lot about him. But apparently he's a decent little player. So
yeah, and so Alex, have you got anything else on Daka? Because I've only seen a little bit, and it's only been in passing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I did a little bit of research before we started recording, and I know he's 22 and he's from Zambia. He plays for Salzburg, I believe.
Just reading the Wikipedia page, aren't you?
Yeah, Wikipedia right there. But from what I've read, which has been very, very small, he sounds like he sounds like he could be a good player. But at the same time, I can't really give anything on him because I don't know much about him. So like that'd be kind of just me being, if I'm hyping up a player that I don't know, it's all lies. So, it'll be interesting. I'll do a little bit more research on him and kind of go from there. Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the case. But anyway, we'll leave that one there. And then we've had obviously some awful things that have happened in the Euro, some amazing things, but also some awful things. I mean, obviously the stuff that happened to Eriksen, I think I'll speak on behalf of everybody here. Thoughts go out to him and his family and everything. And obviously we won't get into the whole, I don't know if you had the fiasco in Canada, Alex, where the players are standing around and they're still trying to shine the camera on it, trying to get the pictures. Yeah. Same thing here. Anyway, it's just despicable in my opinion. But we'll move on from that. Another one I would say was Timothy Castagne got the injury as well to his, I think he had, two fractures to his eye socket, which means that he's missing the rest of the Euros. But I think he's having, as of time recording, he's having the surgery tomorrow, which is not great. Obviously, we don't want to see any of our players being injured. However, and I mean, he's going to come back to the squad in terms of Leicester City in not a great shape. In terms of physically, he might be okay, but mentally, I think that might do a lot for him. Maybe throwing him in the deep end, maybe not the best idea.
No, and it's one of those as well, but he'll probably, as James was saying in the group chat earlier, he'll probably have to be wearing a mask and stuff when he comes back. So it's one of those, it's like, you've got to feel sorry for him. First game of the Euros, he's always, like, when you follow him on his socials, says about how much pride he has playing for his country. So you know that he would have liked to have like seen out the tournament with Belgium. So it's a huge shame from that aspect, and also from like for a Leicester aspect, he's probably going to miss a big chunk of pre-season. And then you've seen with players last season, but they're almost, once you miss pre-season, you're playing catch up to try and get up to fitness with the squad and stuff. So I'm hoping, but it's not as bad as we're thinking it will be. But obviously, the fact that he's got to have surgery tomorrow, we'll probably know more after that.
Yes, but again, that's his tournament over, which is such a shame. I mean, in that position is obviously keeping Mertens out of the side, which is who's a massive talent. But that's his first start one of his starts in the Euros, which is a massive opportunity, Alex. We are gutted for him, but at the same time, it's like these things, they're just football. They just happen, just like the James Justin injury and the Harvey Barnes injury we've seen. Obviously, this is for the international team, but you don't want to see any of your players of the team you support go down, especially with an awful injury. But wish him all the best, and hopefully he comes back to Leicester as strong as he was the last season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I think you could just see how excited he was to play for Belgium this year and, represent his country in the Euros. So, to see him go down in that first game, yeah, it sucks. It's like, I just think of imagine any player getting that opportunity and then being out. Like, it would just be crushing. And with, he seems to have had some bad luck this year, and that's the unfortunate thing, is that, he battled injury all year, and then he was finally fit and healthy. And he was excited to go to the Euros, and then, first game in, and he's done. So very unfortunate. We just wish that he'll have a healthy and speedy recovery so he can get back on the pitch, and that he'll be ready to go with Leicester next season. But, just for now, it's unfortunate, and like these things happen, they're freak accidents. But, at the end of the day, you just got to deal with the punches you get.
Yeah, well, literally in his case, it was not a high punch, but yeah, it was a fracture the ice. It's all good. It's all good. I don't think everybody understands that you don't mean quite literally. It's all good. Sometimes I think Tim will appreciate that if he hears it. But yes, I think for that one, then we'll go on to obviously Kasper Schmeichel, who's been absolutely, again, we've loved him. We know what he's done as Leicester fans and watching him game in, game out, how we can lead. However, I mean, and I don't want to touch too much on the Christian Eriksen thing, but the way that Kasper Schmeichel held himself, I'm not going to lie, I didn't even watch the match, but what I've heard, other fans were just going, wow, this guy's something special. Then all the Leicester City stuff came into the news once again. But I mean, he was always destined to be compared to his dad, even after the 2016. But now he's took that step up and go, right, he's creating his own name for himself. And by his own merit, I mean, this is just amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's been multiple occasions of it where you've just seen sort of what a class guy he is. Obviously, during the tragedy with the helicopter, I'm not going to get into that too much, but he was the one like running out, trying to help where he could, and he had to be dragged away apparently and stuff, which just shows the character that he has. And then Denmark consoling Christian Eriksen's wife and trying to calm her down. But it just shows absolutely everything about him. In fact, that I know we say he's a leader on the pitch, but also the stuff off the pitch and the way that he carries himself and the class that he has, it's just a testament to him. And I think something that's also is slightly a bit more cheerful than what we just said about, but it was during the FA Cup final, he was the player who was trying to get top down onto the pitch. So it seems that he's very aware of everything else, because you see like a lot of footballers that are very unaware in their own bubbles and stuff. But he really seems aware of sort of the outside world, which I think is really good to see.
Yeah, and it helps kind of, if there's a player at Leicester City that I know there's the kind of Wes Morgan and Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's one of them, but Kasper Schmeichel's definitely one of them, Alex, for that mentality as well. And you've seen, what was the interview recently? I can't remember the interview. One of the interviews is recently where it was like, no, I train at the very highest level all the time because I have to set the example. And if you don't get up to that, you're not in the team. But I can't remember what that was, but that was sensational. Just, yeah, it's great to see Kasper making his own name for himself, but also putting his thoughts forward, because I think it was sensational.
Yeah, it just kind of it just shows you, not only is he a leader on the field, but he's off the field, and just, he's just that compassionate human being, And I think that's one thing that a lot of people recognize. You see past the footballer and you see the human being. And I think, with the situations that occurred, this past weekend, I think a lot of people saw that. And I think a lot of people recognize that. Ultimately, I truly think that this weekend, a lot of people recognize that these aren't just football players, but they're human beings. And I think that was a huge thing that a lot of fans took notice of. There was that divide, and it was kind of like one of those opening of the clouds moments where everyone was like, no, these are human beings. These are not just, these football stars. They're human beings. Yeah.
And especially with what happened now. And it's kind of, again, as I'm saying, I don't want to compare it to the helicopter crash. However, I think Denmark now has a special place within every single European, and they want to do well for them because, again, they've got a decent enough team. Again, Christian Eriksen's going to be a bit of a miss for them, but I think they're going to be a fan favorite. I think, and from here on out.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's not just because of what happened to Eriksen, but I think it's how their team responded as well, which is why I think there's so much admiration for them, and I really do hope that they can have a good Euros, and hopefully we see Eriksen. I don't think we'll be seeing him playing anytime soon, but it'll be good to see him sort of more active and sort of hopefully recovering, because it was absolutely horrific what we saw, and it was one of those moments. I'm going to go back to what you were saying before about where they didn't cut the cameras and they kept putting the cameras on him. It was absolutely horrific. And the BBC proper tried to shy away from it, saying it's not their footage. They could have easily cut back to the studio. But slightly off topic, but so that wound me up massively on Saturday. But it was just pass the blame to someone else and no responsibility taken. But hopefully we get a speedy recovery for Eriksen, and hopefully we can see him fit and healthy again in not too much time.
Yes, and I think so as well. Again, Diego Cantos was in the comments. Props to the Finnish fans as well. They treated the situation as if it was their own player, exactly. And they could have, especially they could have chose not to as well. And other fan bases wouldn't have, in my opinion, because of that. And the chant, Eriksen as they were going forwards and backwards was beautiful as well. However, I think that's about it. Has anybody else got any other? Oh, go on, Alex.
There's one player that we tend to forget. And I just want to applaud him for, his first game in the Euros this year. Danny Ward.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
Game. Like, absolutely fantastic. And, I think it just goes to show, I don't think a lot of fans tend to forget Ward. But I have to admit that Leicester City have one of the best duo tandems when it comes to keepers. The fact that you have Danny Ward sitting behind Kasper Schmeichel, and not only does, Schmeichel really play every game, Danny Ward is there sitting down being like, I'm also the starting keeper for my national team. And he had an exceptional game. And I'm looking forward to actually watching more of, his performances through the Euros, because I really do think that, as a backup keeper, I think we tend to forget how good he actually is. And I think that's just an extra little bonus, to have, hidden away at Leicester. I think, and I'm partially, I'm a little bit nervous that if he does perform as well as he has been, teams might come knocking, because I think he's a quality keeper. And, depending on, how long Schmeichel, continues to play, I think Danny Ward could be that next keeper that come up and be the starter after, whatever happens with Schmeichel down the line.
Yeah, especially since we're playing twice a week now as well. On a regular basis, we're going to need another keeper. And I watched part of the match, and he was just unbelievable. I mean, penalty saves and everything. Sensational, really.
It was unbelievable. The thing is, what Alex was saying is we're so lucky to have the two keepers that we have at the club. The thing is, Danny Ward is more than capable to go and be a number one somewhere within the top 10 of the Premier League. So we're so fortunate that we've got him as the backup to Schmeichel, who I put a tweet out the other day saying he's the most underrated keeper in the league. So we're in a very, very fortunate situation.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. And also, one thing that would really not surprise me, but he was awesome at, was just coming back to the FA Cup final. The amount he was celebrating, bearing in mind he only played, I think, playing the Brentford game, and he might have played in the Stoke game as well. Yeah. So but again, the fact that he was out there celebrating with the team was massive as well. And yeah, I would be really interested to see how he does, because he was one player that I didn't quite do. Yeah, you just comment there from. You have to give him a nod more game time. Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's true. I think with Kasper's not getting on a bit, but he's getting up to 35 towards his kind of prime and past his prime. We need to get. He deserves his opportunity, Alex, and he definitely deserves a call up into that Leicester squad for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm hoping that we see this year. And I'm not. That's nothing against Schmeichel. Like, that's absolutely nothing against Schmeichel. But as you said, if we're playing 2 games a week, why not give Ward that opportunity to play, in the Europa games? Give him a cup, here and there, or if Schmeichel needs a rest during a Premier League game, give it to Ward. The one thing that I will always say about this, this tandem of keepers is that there's never going to be a day where I'm worried about, our keeper letting in a soft goal, because I really do believe, Schmeichel's there. He can do his job every single day. And then you have Ward as the backup who can come in and, just as Ant said, he could be a keeper in one of the top 10 clubs in the Premier League. So, if he's given the nod, I'm not concerned whatsoever.
No, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, is there anything else you want to touch on? Sorry, I had Danny Ward and I forgot to write it on my list, but anything else? Because I think that's it. And to be fair, I don't know if there's any more Leicester players up to play as of yet, or upcoming. I think everybody's pretty much done.
Tielemans playing the second round at some.
Yes.
Belgium playing their second game soon.
Did you? I didn't manage to watch some of that match, but how was, because apparently Tielemans was absolutely brilliant in that match as well.
Yeah, I thought he was one of those, like, he didn't do anything outstanding, but he just had a tidy game. Sort of what we see with most weeks from him. But I would have said for his high standards, I would have said it was a 7 out of 10. But a lot of people were saying he was man of the match. So there you go.
Yeah, and just a quick one as well. Hassan puts any thoughts on Tarkowski joining Leicester? Apparently, that was going somewhere. Burnley aren't playing ball, and that's pretty much gone dead. I think that's where that is for you. Do you guys have any extra comments on that one?
I think they're still negotiating, aren't they? But again, it's one of those. It depends who you believe to what's the truth, because we know that the fact that he's talked to Leicester and all of that stuff out of contract next year. The thing about James Tarkowski is Burnley can't afford to let him go for free next year. So I almost feel like they're playing hardball, but it may be one of those deals that happens later on in the window. So I wouldn't rule it out, but it seems like that we've hit a little bit of a roadblock with that one.
Any other thoughts, Alex? Sorry.
No, I think that's perfectly said. Tarkowski's been linked to Leicester for at least over a year, and with him running down his contract with 1 year less, Burnley cannot afford to lose him for free. So I really do think that Burnley is eventually going to be backed into a corner where they're going to have to sell him in order to secure some funds for him. Will it be to Leicester? I can't say 100% confident, but if there was a center back that I'd be wanting to bring into Leicester, it would be Tarkowski.
Yeah, he'd be fantastic, especially what we were talking about earlier with the experience that he brings and that he can hold that position. Bearing in mind he's played for England as well of recent. And I think with the England, I'm surprised actually he's not been called up for the England squad of recent, because we need that. Yeah.
That's because he plays for Burnley. If he was at a different club, he'll be in the England squad, which is part of the reason I think he's so keen to move. Like, no disrespect to Burnley, I think they're a brilliantly run club and they're operating very well within their means. But it's what we talk about with the big club bias. But when you've got a centre back at Burnley, you're really fighting up against a brick wall to get in the England squad. But when you see there's absolute dopes in the squad like Tyrone Mings, I don't know how Tarkowski or Lewis Dunk isn't in the squad. But anyway, I could rant about Southgate's decisions until probably next Friday till we play Scotland. So I'll shut up and just say it's coming home.
Yeah, I'm not quite on that hype train yet. I'm just saying, do you know what? I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. It's not that I don't like England. It's just it's weird supporting a club that does well. Almost, I'm so used to supporting Leicester that have been terrible for so many years, and then to go, oh yeah, let me support a club that's been one of the favourites. It's like I do support them when I watch them and I go, oh, when we scored, it was like fantastic. and we're playing some okay football. But anyway, Alex, what did you think of England as well?
Questionable to say the least. At the end of the day, winning 1-0 against Croatia, is fantastic. I think they're going to have a great group stage, but I'm going to reserve my comments until the end result. I think whatever happens with this end result will really dictate whatever happens afterwards. So I'm going to remain confident as a Canadian cheering for England, but it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I will say it's coming home across the ocean, because I don't know. It's weird when I said it the first time around, so I'll just keep saying it. But yes, as Diego says, Calvin Phillips is amazing.
He was. And watch, I thought he was fantastic. However, all the narrative will come out in a couple of weeks. He's good. He's too good to play for Leeds. He's got a 60 million child transfer to the top 6 club, and just ignore them, Leeds fans. I mean, Leeds fans are big enough.
Wasn't he linked to? I swear, after that game, he was linked. There was an article linking him to Chelsea.
Of course, but Chelsea have everybody linked because they've got the debit card of infinity. They would buy who they want,
Yeah,
and
it's worked for them, though, hasn't it?
I just saw Lewis put out something online. Jack Grealish. I was like, oh no, shut up, man! You just want to buy anybody at this rate. But anyway,
yeah. Lewis is the best person to do it, just to wind people up. He'll put names out that he knows they're never getting, and just reel in fans.
Yeah, it worked hook, line, sinker for me. But apart from that, everybody, thank you for watching the show. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week with some more gossip and all this kind of stuff. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, because it really does help us out. Ant's got awesome internet, so that's worth a like in itself. Alex is here. If you guys want to, let us know if you want us to do some England content. We're still trying to figure it out as we go, but let us know if that's something you want to see from this channel, because it's all been quite Leicester City focused from here on out. But again, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, dear content, for the fantastic comments, and everybody that's been watching and liking and subscribing and commenting as we've gone along. We really appreciate it, and we'll see everybody in the next video. So goodbye.